This is the first video of two parts about installing classic macOS onto emulators. In this part, I'll show you how to install System 6 and System 7 on Mini vMac. I'm using a custom build of Mini vMac, which is available, along with all the necessary software, except the actual system install disk at the links below. I've got a directory here with various Mini vMac emulators, along with ROM images which are not provided. You'll need to get your hands on the System 6.0.8 disk image archives. Apple has them up somewhere. The files you're looking for are SSW 6.0.8-1.4 MB disks 1 and 2.sea.bin. Download them and put them in this directory, which contains a decompressor and batch file you can run to decompress them. Once you've double-clicked the batch file, you can delete everything except the disk images, as you only need the images. Now you can double-click the Mac Plus version of Mini vMac. And it brings up a disk with a flashing question mark. It doesn't start with any disks inserted. To insert a disk, you drag and drop the image into the emulator. Then you drag the System 6 Editions disk into it. Then you go to Blank Images and copy the system6.hfv file into the Mini vMac directory. And then drag that into the emulator. Click Initialize, then Erase. Then type in a name for the disk and click OK. Now you can open System Startup. The versions of the emulator that I've compiled run at the original speed of 1980s Macs. In this version, hold Alt to get into control mode, then press S to get into speed control. You can press a key to select a different speed. You might want to press A to go all out to speed things up when you're installing stuff. Double-click the installer to launch it. Click OK. Click Customize. Click System Software for any Macintosh, and then hold Shift as you click 32-bit Quick Draw. Then click Install. Click Quit. Open the System 6 disk and move the window where you want it. Next, open System Startup and drag Teach Text over. Now you can restart. And it ejects all the disks, so you'll need to drag system6.hfv back over. Drag the System 6 Editions over again. Open the Editions disk, then open the Font DA Mover folder and double-click on Font DA Mover. Click Open on the right-hand side and open the Fonts file. Click and hold and drag down until you've selected all the fonts. Then click Copy. Now click Desk Accessory. Then click Open on the right-hand side again and open the Desk Accessories file. And now you can copy a couple of desk accessories over. Now you can drag the Editions disk to the trash to eject it. Next, you want to drag the System 6 version of ImportFL over to the emulator. Then drag ImportFL over to your disk. Eject the disk. And do it all over again, this time with the ExportFL disk. Now go into blank images and copy the shared.hfv file over to the mini vMac folder. Drag that one over. Now you can format it. It gives you 100 megabytes of space that you can share between different emulators. Now drag System 6 and 7 software over. The first thing to do with this disk is to run the Stuff It Expander 401 installer. Click Continue. Click Install. And click Install again. Click OK. Now double-click the Drop Stuff installer. Click Continue. Click Install. And click Install again. Click Cancel here. Click OK. You can now drag Drop Stuff into the trash, as you don't need the actual Drop Stuff program in System 6. Now I'll describe the other software on this disk. Mount Image lets you mount disk images from a control panel. To install it, just drag it to the System folder. Drag Font DA Mover over to your drive. There's Disk Copy 4.2 in case you want it. Then there's Superclock, which is a menu bar clock. If you want one, just drag Superclock to the System folder. Then there's Strip, Fork Zapper, and PowerPC Check. All of those can strip data forks or PowerPC code, which isn't needed on 68K Macs. Finder Info lets you change file types. ResEdit lets you modify resources contained in resource forks, among other things. Next is Desktop, which is really nice to have around. To install it, you'll need to load the Font DA Mover. Click Desk Accessory. Open Desktop 1.2 on the right-hand side. Now you can select it and copy it over to the system file. Desktop can do a lot of the same stuff Finder Info can do, and I prefer it to that. The last thing on this disk is DA Piggyback, which requires more explanation. It lets you run desk accessories like normal programs. To use it, copy it somewhere. Next, you rename it to the name of the desk accessory you want to use. Then you open Font DA Mover. After selecting desk accessories, you open the desk accessory file containing the DA you want to use. Then you hold F1 when you click Open on the right. Open the copy of DA Piggyback you made earlier. Now you can copy the DA over. And you can now run the DA like it's a regular program. So drag the software disk to the trash. Next, drag the System 6 software disk over. All of these are extensions. Auto Cursor animates the busy watch. Desktop Manager keeps the desktop from being rebuilt every time you load a System 6 drive in System 7. And some other stuff. So drag it all to the System folder. Then there's Resume to Finder, which lets you resume to the Finder if a program crashes. Zoom in speeds up window opening. I'm ejecting that disk. Now I'm going to enable multitasking. Click the Multi-Finder radio button. Now, if you want Mini vMac to load disks when you boot, first create a shortcut. Go to Properties, and then type the names of the disks you want to boot with the shortcut. I'm typing in system6.hfv and shared.hfv here. So now you've got Multi-Finder enabled. This lets you run multiple programs at the same time in System 6. You can click on this to switch between programs. And the icon to the right of it is the OnQ extension, which gives you a System 7 style Multi-Finder menu. Now I'm going to install some TrueType fonts. Load the Fontier mover. Open the TrueType fonts. Select them all and click Copy. The spinning watch here comes from Auto Cursor. The last thing on here is something I found in an old Mac disk I have from the 80s that I made an image of 20 years ago called Windows. It's a desk accessory that gives you a Windows menu on the menu bar, and it might crash your system, so be a little wary of it. And that concludes this section of the video. Stay tuned for System 7. The first thing I'll do is load the Mac 2 version of Mini vMac. Next, drag the minsys7.dsk over, which is the most minimal install of System 7 possible. Now I'm dragging the shared.hfv file over so there'll be room to extract the System 7 disk set. Double-click Import FL. Next, drag the System 7 SMI.bin and System Tuneup 1.1.1 files that you can get from Apple into the emulator. Click Desktop, then click the drive with the actual room on it, and save the files to it. Double-click Bin Unpack. Open each of the files and save the unbinaried files back. Open your shared disk and double-click the System 7 Tune-Up file to extract that disk. After it's extracted, double-click the System 7.0.1.smi file. Click Agree. Click Skip when it pops up to skip the verification. Double-click Export FL. Click Desktop and then the 7.0.1 disk, and then open each of the image files. And save them to your computer. Do this for all 6 of the images on the 7.0.1 disk. Do the same thing for the System 7 Tune-Up image. Do not export the .sea file. You can now shut down the emulator. You can also delete the files you grabbed from Apple. You might want to rename the file extension from .image to .dsk, but that's up to you. The emulator doesn't care. Load the Mac 2 emulator back up and drag the Install 1 disk over to it. Drag Install 2, Fonts, Printing, and Tidbits over. And I'm making a copy of the system7.hfv file to the mini vMac directory. Now drag that to the emulator. Click OK. Now initialize the disk. Click Customize. And install system software for any Macintosh. Click Quit. Restart. Drag the system7.hfv back over. Now, drag the non-System 6 import FL over. Drag the import FL icon over to the drive. Do the same for export FL. Next, drag the System 7 Tune-Up disk over. Run the installer. Drag the System 6 and 7 software disk over. Run this stuff at Expander Installer. It's the same as installing it for System 6. Do the same with drop stuff. Click OK here, and click Cancel. Drop stuff actually works on System 7, so you can keep it. You can drag mount image over to the system folder if you want it. And desk accessories like Desktop are also installed in the same way on System 7. You can install other stuff from this disk if you want. Now drag the System 7 software disk over to the emulator. Drag these to the system folder. Then there's drag and drop, which helps dragging and dropping. Not sure really, but I install it anyway. This is the System 7 version of Drag Any Window. Smart Scroll, which changes the scroll buttons around. Window Shade will let you collapse windows into just the top bar. I'm not a fan of it. Disk Copy 6.3.3 is good to have because it can mount disk images using scripts. Once it's on your drive, run it once to register the file types. You can also install QuickTime. Go into the QuickTime 2.5 folder and go through the folders until you get to the installer. Click Continue, then Agree, and finally Install. So you should now have a decent Mac 2 System 7 install. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and you can now proceed to the second part, which shows how to install System 7.5 under Basilisk 2. See you next time.